Dyeing hair has been a part of the fashion industry for hundreds and hundreds of years. From natural plant-based dyes all the way to name brands you can buy from Target, we've come a long way as both a form of cosmetics and a form of art. Today, dyes can be permanent, temporary, and many have special instructions, but the process is mostly the same across the board. It's important to follow that process in order to guarantee your best results, in order to avoid harmful chemical reactions either on yourself, spur of the moment, or on a trusted friend. With years of experience under my gloves, I will be going over essential safety and sharing some tips that I wish I knew when I first got into hair cosmetics. The first tip is about basic safety to make sure that we are on the same page. Using tools is an essential part of keeping yourself safe. Gloves keep both harmful chemicals and color off of your hands. Even if you don't have gloves, using some kind of barrier is crucial, like a plastic bag or a grocery bag or something along those lines. To keep the forehead, ears, and skin in general, back of the neck, from being burned on the hairline, many people recommend Vaseline or any kind of thick conditioner moisturizer. This prevents discomfort such as like itching or burning or staining that might be ugly and interfere with the results that you want. For the purpose of giving this speech, by the way, you can see that I'm in a dark, nicer shirt and dark pants. In a less professional setting, I recommend wearing something older, less sentimental value. I also recommend laying something like a towel down and not doing hair products or doing hair care over a surface like a carpet or a stainable floor, as drippage and spillage is inevitable. Before you start, you should always check the instructions on the box or the product that you were actually bought. Everything will come with some type of special instruction, whether it be a ratio of a developer to use, a certain order to mix the chemicals, or anything like that. For example, I've had products that say that you should put half of part 1 into part 2 and shake it for 30 seconds, and then put the second half into part 2, and then put it on the head, something like that. Something that you're not used to is pretty common depending on what you buy. So you should always know what you're getting into ahead of time. If a container is supplied to you, then use that container. If not, then use something like a good-sized plastic container like a Tupperware, not metal. Metal will heat up, and these chemicals are conductive. These chemicals produce heat as a reaction when they're mixing, oftentimes. Metal being conductive just is not a good mix. Take note of how long each product has been open, how long it's been processing, and how long it's been on the head. Time is a really important part of safety when doing hair. Timers are your best friend in making sure that you don't fry your hair and making sure you don't overuse or just waste product. Now, when it comes to application itself, I have one main tip, the tip that I wish I knew that has helped me the most while doing hair cosmetics. And that tip is that less is not more. I'll be using this wig and this section of hair to demonstrate what I mean by that, showing the difference between mediocre coverage and good coverage. You might be wondering why that has to do with safety. I'll explain that in a second, after I demonstrate. Now, you can see on this side right here that there is product. It is clearly purple, as that is the color that I've applied to it, but it's not very good coverage on the underside. It's not very good coverage in between strands. That's because it's kind of mediocre. What you want to do, because less is not more, is you want to slowly build up product on whatever section of hair you're working on. I'm going to do this by picking up product and rubbing it in. And then once I've added some there, I'm going to turn it over and get the underside as well. I'm going to get in between the strands, maybe even break it up into smaller sections, and then do it like that. This is a very important part of the application process, and it's one that I see people mess up the most, is just skimping out on product itself. It's also not very clear on boxes how much you might need. So, experience, research is really important here. Be sure to purchase enough product to be able to fully cover your head, or whatever you're dyeing, your hair. After you've finished application, the next important tool that I want you guys to use is a hairnet. If you don't have a hairnet itself, then any kind of plastic grocery bag will work as long as it doesn't have color on it. If you're using a lightener, then you don't want to use a Target grocery bag in order to wrap the hair up, because some of that red, that dye on the plastic bag, might actually bleed through and interfere with your process. Nobody really wants, unless you do, nobody wants a red bullseye on the top of their head if they're lightening their whole head. One of my favorite tips, another one that I wish I knew when I first started, is that a good way to keep your hair safe and to keep it from frying is to add a little bit of water into your hairnet. This keeps moisture in. Moisture is a huge part of the process. Because as products dry out and they lose effectiveness, they can also damage your hair. Little tips and tricks like, the conditioner, the water in the hairnet is really important to doing a safe job and doing a good job with even lifting and without damaging your actual skin or your scalp or anything like that. When you bag the hair, in this case, since I only dyed this, I'll put the entire piece in. I will make sure it is closed. And I can even use something like a hair tie that I don't care very much about to keep that piece sealed in there. I don't want anything leaking out or getting onto a surface that it isn't supposed to be on. Now, one more tip that I want to share is about rinsing. When you rinse, you want to be sure to rinse in the order that you applied the product onto your hair, especially if you took a while. Remember when I mentioned timers? Now, timers are important, and keeping track of the time is important because if you take a long time and you have a huge head of hair, you're going to want to make sure that you don't leave one section on a lot longer than the other. When you rinse, you're going to rinse thoroughly. You're going to make sure that the section that you rinse first is the section that's been on the longest. The section that you rinse last, even if it's maybe the back of your head and that's the section you normally first start with in the shower, that's going to be the section that you rinse last. After you've rinsed and dried, you're done. If you use proper equipment, you understand directions, and you maybe take a little bit of my advice, you should have an enjoyable time dyeing hair. Although it's very important to be safe and follow instructions and all that jazz, it's also very important that you like the end product. So make sure what you're doing well, and you enjoy what you're doing. It'll make your actual hair better in the end. Whether it be to boost self-confidence, a cultural reason, or just simply to try something new, I hope your experience with hair is a good one.